here in Abergele today to commemorate the sacrifice made by two young men at this spot on the 30th of June 1969. Those men were named Alwyn Jones and George Taylor. In protest of the investiture of Charles the following day, the men were killed suddenly when the bomb they were planting detonated prematurely. They had never intended to bring harm to anyone, and the protesters intended to damage the council offices that once existed during the early hours of the bombing. Of course, they have been subject to slander by the Unionist establishment, decreeing that men as terrorists for allegedly attempting to destroy Charles's train, despite being nowhere near the railway at the time of the explosion. As was the case for every other act of protest performed by Mudiad Eryr in Cymru, no one was to come to harm as a result of the movement's actions. On the other hand, the investiture represented a crude mockery of Wales, in which the Welsh people were reminded of their subservience to England. Here behind the pomp and opulence of that ceremony, and you will discover what it truly signifies. It was in 1282, nearing the end of the English subjugation of Wales, that Llywelyn Einstew, Olaf, the last native prince of Wales, was murdered in an English ambush at Kilmary. In celebration, the English decapitated Llywelyn's corpse and paraded his head around the streets of London, crowning him with ivy in an act of mockery. Less than a year later, his brother, Dafydd ap Griffith, was captured with his family on the slopes of Berrymawr. He was dragged through the streets of Shrewsbury by horse and subsequently hung. Before he was granted the mercy of death, he was removed from the noose and disemboweled alive. His entrails were then burned in front of him, preceding his body being ripped into quarters. Wales was defeated. In order to keep the Welsh in check, Edward Longshanks began the construction of the Ring of Ayers to render any rebellion attempts an exercise of futility. So extensive was the ring's construction that it almost plunged the Kingdom of England into bankruptcy. The finishing touch came in 1301, when Longshanks formally invested his son as the Prince of Wales. And so began the so-called tradition of English monarchs declaring their heirs as a Prince of the Welsh. A tradition soaked in blood, subjugation and abhorrent violence against the people of Wales. In 1911, the arch-frater Lloyd George reinvented the tradition and brought it to town Arbroath. At the time, it served as a reminder to Welsh workers being gunned down by the British Army in Abergele and Aberth, but they belonged at the bottom of British society. When it was Carlo's turn to become the next English Prince of Wales in 1969, the Welsh nation finally struck back into fire. Protests dominated the streets of Wales in the years leading up to the ceremony, as John Bernard Jenkins architected a sophisticated campaign of reductions. It was nearing the end of the campaign that the Welsh Republican struggle tragically received its two martyrs. For there to be a Welsh Republic, the memory of these two men must be kept alive. For a nation that does not remember its martyrs, its dunes will forever be subjugated. They form part of a long chain of Welsh resistances, in which many of which have fallen in service of their country, whether it be the resistance of 1282, 1400, 1831, 1839, or 1969. Our history terrifies those who seek to help us in the so-called Union. They know that our history is our greatest weapon. It is our duty as Republican nationalists to keep the flame of the resistance burning for the generations of Welsh men and women who are here and yet to be born. We salute these two men today. We salute them in confidence and pride. The Welsh of today will not be lesser men than their fathers. Cofiwch, Aberth, Abergele.